3 months ago, I walked out of the most toxic workplace I've ever experienced. No 2 weeks notice, no explanation, just grabbed my jacket and never looked back. My manager, Sandra Chen, had made my life hell for 2 straight years. The constant micromanaging, the public humiliation in team meetings, the way she'd assign me impossible deadlines just to watch me scramble. What Sandra didn't know was that I'd been quietly building something on the side. While she was busy making PowerPoints about synergy and leveraging human capital, I was developing an app that would eventually sell for 8 figures. The irony? It was a workplace wellness platform designed to help employees escape toxic environments. But here's where the story gets interesting. Last week, I was doing my monthly visit to the downtown homeless shelter I've been funding anonymously since my windfall. It's part of my way of giving back, something my immigrant parents taught me despite our own financial struggles growing up in Queens. I'm walking through the common area, checking on the new computer lab we'd installed, when I see her. Sandra, my former boss, sitting at one of the donated tables, filling out intake paperwork with shaking hands. The same woman who once told me I'd never amount to anything in this industry was now relying on a facility I bankroll to have a roof over her head. She looked nothing like the polished executive who used to tear apart my presentations. Her designer blazer had been replaced by a worn hoodie, her perfectly styled hair now pulled back in a messy ponytail. Our eyes met across the room. Recognition flickered in hers, followed immediately by something I'd never seen before: shame. She quickly looked away, but it was too late. We both knew what this moment meant. You see, success isn't just about the money you make or the recognition you receive. Sometimes it's about the perspective you gain when life flips the script entirely. This is the story of how karma works in ways you never expect, and how the people who tear you down often end up needing the very compassion they never showed you. Growing up in Flushing, Queens, in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment above my uncle's laundromat, I learned early that respect was earned through endurance. My parents, first-generation immigrants from Taiwan, had sacrificed everything for the American dream. Dad worked double shifts at an electronics factory in Long Island City, while Mom cleaned office buildings in Manhattan during graveyard hours. Their English was broken, but their work ethic was bulletproof. In our household, complaining wasn't an option. You pushed through, you adapted, you survived. My younger sister Amy and I were expected to excel academically while helping run the family's small alterations business that Mom operated out of our living room. The sewing machine's constant humming became the soundtrack of my childhood, along with Mom's reminders that hard work always pays, but sometimes takes long time. The humiliation started young. I was 12 when our 6th grade class had career day, where parents were invited to talk about their professions. I still remember watching classmates, parents stride in wearing suits, carrying briefcases, speaking confidently about being lawyers, doctors, marketing executives. When it was my mom's turn, she shuffled in wearing her cleaning uniform. The only nice clothes she owned were at the dry cleaner that week. She spoke in halting English about the importance of honest work, how cleaning offices taught her about American business. Some kids snickered. I wanted to disappear into my desk. What made it worse was seeing the pity in my teacher's eyes, the way she overcompensated with enthusiastic applause that felt more like charity than genuine appreciation. The second incident happened during my senior year of high school. I'd been accepted to NYU's business program with partial scholarship, something my parents celebrated by splurging on a family dinner at the neighborhood's fanciest restaurant, a mid-level Italian place called Villa Romanos. We rarely ate out, so this was huge for us. I invited my girlfriend Jessica, whose father owned a construction company in Westchester. When her parents showed up to meet the family, the culture clash was immediate and brutal. They arrived in a BMW, wearing clothes that cost more than my parents made in a month. The conversation was painful, my dad's enthusiastic but heavily accented English explaining our family's journey, my mom nervously over-ordering appetizers she couldn't pronounce. Jessica's mother kept checking her phone, barely concealing her discomfort. Her father made condescending comments about the value of manual labor, while clearly looking down on everything about us. The worst moment came when he loudly asked the waiter if they accepted those government assistance cards. When the check arrived, assuming we couldn't afford to pay. My dad, with quiet dignity, pulled out cash he'd been saving for months. Jessica broke up with me 2 weeks later, claiming we were from different worlds. She wasn't wrong, but the way she said it, like my world was somehow lesser, burned for years. These experiences taught me something crucial about respect and dignity. I watched my parents absorb condescension and prejudice with grace I couldn't comprehend then. They never complained, never expressed bitterness, just kept working toward a better future for Amy and me. But I also saw how the world could make you feel small, how people in positions of power could strip away your dignity with careless words and dismissive attitudes. So when I started working corporate jobs after college, I made a promise to myself. I'd never let anyone make me feel the way those people had made my family feel. I'd build something of my own, something that couldn't be taken away by someone else's opinion of my worth. The secret I'd been carrying for the past year was bigger than just my financial success. After selling my app, I'd established the Chen Family Foundation, named after my parents, not Sandra, with a focus on workplace dignity initiatives and housing support for people experiencing career transitions. The downtown shelter was just one of several programs we funded, all operating under complete anonymity. I hadn't told my parents about the money yet. In our culture, sudden wealth can bring unexpected pressures and obligations. I wanted to make sure I was using it wisely first, honoring the values they'd instilled in me. The plan was to reveal everything at our upcoming family reunion, a celebration of my dad's 30th anniversary in America, where 3 generations would gather at a rented hall in Chinatown. I'd been planning a grand gesture, presenting my parents with the deed to a house in a nice part of Queens, along with enough money to retire comfortably. But seeing Sandra at the shelter changed everything. Sometimes the universe has different plans for your moment of truth. Comment below and let me know where you're watching this from. I'd love to know how far this story reaches. The family reunion was set for the last Saturday in October at the Golden Dragon Banquet Hall in Chinatown, the same place where my parents had celebrated their wedding anniversary every 5 years since moving to America. 63 relatives from 3 generations would be there, including cousins who'd flown in from California and my grandmother who rarely left her apartment in Elmhurst anymore. 4 weeks, I'd been coordinating with Amy to make sure everything was perfect. We'd ordered traditional Taiwanese dishes, hired a photographer, even arranged for a lion dance performance, something my dad had always wanted but never thought he could afford. The deed to the house in Bayside was tucked in an envelope in my jacket pocket, along with a cashier's check that would let my parents retire immediately. But seeing Sandra at the shelter 3 days before the reunion had thrown me completely off balance. I couldn't stop thinking about the look in her eyes, not just the shame, but the desperation. I'd spent 2 years fantasizing about her downfall, imagining scenarios where she'd realize how wrong she'd been about me. Reality felt different. Messy. The morning of the reunion, I arrived early to help set up decorations. The hall was bustling with activity. My aunts arranging flowers, cousins testing the sound system, kids running around between the round tables covered in red tablecloths. My parents stood near the entrance, greeting arriving relatives with the kind of joy I hadn't seen from them in years. "Kevin." My dad waved me over, beaming. "Come meet your cousin Robert from Los Angeles. He started his own tech company too." Robert turned out to be everything I used to think success looked like. Expensive watch, designer suit, business cards he handed out like party favors. Within minutes, he was explaining how his revolutionary food delivery app was going to disrupt the entire industry. The irony wasn't lost on me that 6 months ago, I would have been intimidated by his confidence. Now I just felt tired. "So what are you working on these days?" Robert asked, clearly expecting to launch into a competitive comparison. "I'm between projects," I said simply. My mother shot me a worried look. In our family, being between projects was code for failure. The tension started building during the photo session. Extended family members kept asking about my career, my relationship status, my plans for the future. In Taiwanese culture, family gatherings are performance spaces where success is measured and compared. My cousin Jennifer had just made partner at her law firm. My uncle's son had gotten into medical school. Even my teenage cousin was already being recruited by MIT. I found myself deflecting questions, giving vague answers about consulting work and exploring opportunities. The weight of the envelope in my pocket felt heavier with each conversation. Part of me wanted to pull it out right then, to show everyone the house deed and bank statements, to finally claim my place in the family success hierarchy. But then my Aunt Linda cornered me by the tea station. Linda had always been the family critic, the one who pointed out everyone's failures with surgical precision. "Your mother tells me you quit your job without having another one lined up," she said, stirring her tea with disapproval. "Very risky in this economy. Maybe you should have stayed, worked harder to impress your boss." The words hit exactly where they were designed to. Linda had no idea about Sandra, about the daily humiliation, about walking out on a six-figure salary because I had something better waiting. She just saw another family disappointment who couldn't handle corporate pressure. "Sometimes staying isn't worth the cost," I replied, keeping my voice level. "Easy to say when your parents are still supporting you," she continued. "At your age, you should be taking care of them, not the other way around." That's when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Kevin, this is Sandra Chin. I saw you at the shelter. Could we please talk? It's important." I stared at the message, feeling the room spin slightly. How had she gotten my number? What could she possibly want to say? And why now, in the middle of my family's celebration? My dad chose that moment to stand up at the head table, tapping his water glass with a chopstick. "Family, friends, thank you for coming today. 30 years ago, I came to America with nothing but hope and determination. Today, I see my children grown, my family prosperous, my dreams realized." He gestured toward me and Amy, his eyes bright with pride. "My son and daughter, they achieve everything I hoped for. They honor our family name, they make us proud every day." The room erupted in applause. I felt every eye on me, felt the weight of expectations and assumptions and the growing realization that my carefully planned moment of revelation was about to become something much more complicated. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe to the channel and hit that like button. We're so close to reaching 1,000 subscribers and your support means everything to us. As my father continued his speech about family honor and achievement, my phone buzzed again. Another text from Sandra. "Please. I know you have every right to hate me, but I need to explain what happened. I lost everything because of what I did to you." My hands started shaking. Across the room, my mother was wiping away tears of pride as Dad talked about their journey from Taiwan. My cousins were nodding approvingly, finally seeing me as part of the family success story. And here I was, holding a phone message from the woman who had nearly destroyed my self-worth, asking for forgiveness at the worst possible moment. "Kevin has always been special," my dad continued, his voice carrying across the silent banquet hall. "Even when others didn't see his potential, we knew he would find his way. Tonight, we celebrate not just our family's past, but our bright future." More applause. Aunt Linda was actually smiling at me now, probably reconsidering her earlier criticism. This was supposed to be my moment of triumph, the grand gesture that would rewrite my place in family history. Instead, I found myself thinking about Sandra sitting in that shelter, filling out paperwork with trembling hands. About the look of recognition and shame that had passed between us. About the text messages that suggested there was more to her story than I knew. My dad raised his glass. "To Kevin, who makes us proud every day." "To Kevin," the room chorused, 63 voices lifting in unison. I stood up slowly, the envelope with the house deed feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. This was it, the moment I'd been planning for months. I was supposed to present the deed, announce my success, watch my parents' faces light up with joy and disbelief. The perfect ending to years of struggle and humiliation. But Sandra's words kept echoing in my mind. "I lost everything because of what I did to you." "Thank you all for being here," I began, my voice surprisingly steady. "Family means everything to me, and your support has carried me through some difficult times." Nods around the room. Encouraging smiles. My mother's proud expression. 2 years ago, I was working for a woman named Sandra Chin, no relation, I continued. She made my life hell. Daily humiliation, public criticism, Impossible deadlines designed to make me fail. She told me I'd never amount to anything in the corporate world. The room grew quiet. This wasn't the speech they were expecting. 3 months ago, I quit that job without notice. I walked out mid-meeting and never looked back. I pulled out my phone, showing Sandra's messages. Today, she's texting me from a homeless shelter, asking to talk. She says she lost everything because of what she did to me. Confused murmurs started rippling through the crowd. My father's proud smile was fading into concern. Here's what she doesn't know, I said, reaching into my jacket. But instead of pulling out the house deed, I held up my phone again. The app one developed while she was tearing me down? It sold for $42 million. The homeless shelter where she's staying? I've been funding it anonymously for the past year. The silence in the room was deafening. I came here tonight planning to give Mom and Dad the deed to a house in Bayside. To announce that they can retire immediately with full financial security. To finally prove that all the humiliation, all the times people looked down on our family, meant nothing. My voice started breaking. But standing here now, looking at all of you, I realize something. Success isn't about proving people wrong. It's not about revenge or vindication or making grand gestures that erase years of shame. I looked directly at Aunt Linda, then at my parents. It's about choosing who you become when you have the power to choose. And right now, I'm choosing to be the person Mom and Dad raised me to be, someone who helps people even when they don't deserve it. I put the envelope back in my pocket. The house deed and retirement money are still happening. But first, I need to go talk to someone who needs help more than we need a dramatic moment. The room erupted. Cousins started talking over each other, asking about the $42 million, the app, the shelter. My father looked stunned, like he was trying to process everything at once. My mother covered her mouth with both hands, tears streaming down her face. "Kevin, wait," my father called out as I headed toward the exit. I turned back one last time. "Dad, you raised me to believe that how we treat people when they're down defines who we really are. I learned that from watching you and Mom handle every insult, every condescending comment, every person who made you feel small, and still choose kindness. I'll be back to finish this celebration properly. But right now, someone needs help, and that's more important than any speech or ceremony." I walked out of the Golden Dragon Banquet Hall, leaving behind 63 shocked relatives and the most dramatic family reunion in Chin family history. The drive from Chinatown to the downtown shelter took 23 minutes through Saturday evening traffic. 23 minutes of my phone exploding with texts from confused relatives, missed calls from Amy, and one voicemail from my dad that I wasn't ready to listen to yet. My hands were still shaking as I pulled into the shelter's parking lot. I found Sandra in the common area, sitting alone at a corner table with a cup of coffee and what looked like job applications spread in front of her. She'd aged years in the 3 months since I'd last seen her at the office. The sharp edges that had made her so intimidating were gone, replaced by something fragile and hollow. She looked up when I approached, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. "You came," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "You said it was important." "It is." She gestured to the chair across from her. "Please. I know I don't deserve your time, but I need you to hear this." I sat down, studying her face. The woman who had once reduced me to tears during a presentation about quarterly projections now looked like she might cry herself. "I got fired 2 weeks after you quit," she began. "Turns out, the way I managed people was finally catching up to me. HR had been building a case for months, complaints from multiple employees, documentation of hostile behavior, evidence of creating toxic work environments." She took a shaky sip of coffee. "The final straw was when they reviewed our team's productivity metrics after you left. Turns out, our department's performance had actually improved dramatically in the 3 months after you quit. Made them realize the problem was me, not the people I was managing." I felt a strange mix of vindication and sadness. "So you're saying my leaving triggered your firing?" "More than that." Sandra's hands were trembling now. "They launched a full investigation. Found out I'd been falsifying performance reviews, taking credit for subordinates' ideas, basically building my career on making other people look incompetent so I'd look indispensable." The confession hung between us. I thought about all those times she'd presented my research as her own insights, all the projects where my contributions had somehow disappeared from the final presentations. But that's not the worst part, she continued. When they fired me, word spread through the industry fast. Turns out, a lot of people had been waiting for someone to call out my behavior. No one would hire me. Not just in New York. I tried Chicago, Los Angeles, even looked at positions in London. My reputation was destroyed. She pulled out her phone, showing me a screenshot of a Glassdoor review. Someone created a thread about toxic managers in tech. My name came up 17 times. 17 different employees from different companies, all describing similar experiences. I read some of the comments. They were brutal but fair, detailed accounts of manipulation, public humiliation, credit theft. Stories that sounded eerily similar to my own experience. I burned through my savings in 2 months, Sandra continued. Lost my apartment, had to sell my car. My parents in California won't talk to me, they're ashamed of how I treated people. My ex-husband is using my unemployment against me in our custody battle. She wiped her eyes with a napkin from the shelter's dispenser. I've been here for 3 weeks. And yesterday, I found out something that made everything even worse. What? One of the other residents recognized your name from the app sale announcement in TechCrunch. She showed me the article and I realized, you did it. You actually built something amazing while I was busy tearing you down. Sandra's voice broke completely now. And then I found out about the foundation, about this shelter being one of your funding recipients. Kevin, I'm living off your charity. The person I tortured for 2 years is literally keeping me from sleeping on the street. The weight of the situation hit me fully. This wasn't just karma, this was a complete reversal of every power dynamic we'd ever had. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because I need you to know that you were right about everything. Every time I criticized your work, every time I made you feel small, every time I told you that you didn't have what it takes, I was projecting my own insecurities onto you. You had talent and integrity, and I was threatened by that. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. I kept copies of all your original project proposals, all the research you did that I took credit for. I know it doesn't matter now, but I wanted you to have proof that your ideas were good. They were better than good, they were brilliant. I opened the folder and saw months of my own work annotated with Sandra's handwritten notes. Expand this section, excellent insight. Use Kevin's data analysis framework. Build presentation around Kay's research. You knew my work was good the whole time? I knew it was better than mine. That's why I had to tear you down. If people saw how capable you were, they'd realize how incompetent I was. She looked directly at me for the first time. I destroyed your confidence because I was terrified you'd expose my lack of competence. My phone buzzed with another text from Amy. Where are you? Dad is worried sick. Come back. I need to get back to my family, I said, standing up. Kevin, wait. Sandra stood too. I know I have no right to ask this, but is there any chance, any possibility, that you could help me find a way to make amends? Not for a job or money or anything like that. I just need to find a way to rebuild myself into someone who doesn't hurt people. I looked at her for a long moment. 3 months ago, I would have walked away without a second thought. But standing in a shelter that I funded, looking at someone who had lost everything while I had gained more than I'd ever dreamed, the choice felt different. The foundation has a program, I said slowly. Workplace dignity training for managers who want to change their leadership style. It's usually for people who are still employed, but maybe we can make an exception. Sandra's eyes widened. You do that? I'd do that for anyone who genuinely wanted to change. But Sandra, this isn't about forgiveness or redemption. This is about making sure you never treat another person the way you treated me. I understand. I pulled out a business card, the foundation's card, not my personal one. Call this number Monday morning. Ask for Maria Santos. Tell her Kevin Chin referred you for the management rehabilitation program. As I walked toward the exit, Sandra called out one more time. Kevin? Thank you. And for what it's worth, your parents should be incredibly proud of who you've become. I drove back to Chinatown with a strange sense of closure. The family reunion was still in full swing when I returned, but the energy had shifted. Instead of celebration, there was a buzz of curiosity and concern. My parents were waiting by the entrance, my father still in his banquet suit but looking older somehow. "Kevin," my mother said, reaching for my hands. "Are you okay?" "I'm okay, Mom. Better than okay, actually." I pulled out the envelope I'd been carrying all night. "Are you ready for that surprise now?"